Hello, Aldo Figueroa here. In this video, I'm going to show you how you could import an Illustrator file, curves from Illustrator, directly into Maya. So what I'm going to make available for you, I have Illustrator open, a couple of files. Right here, I have this Sega logo, and it's the tools to importing the paths from Illustrator into Maya. Uh, I actually have gotten a lot better. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to click on this group. I could either click over here in the layers, or I could use my selection tool and just do a marquee selection to select everything. I'm going to go to edit. I'm going to go to copy. It's going to copy this information in. So right here you can see that the shapes are already created. It has some color. I'm going to switch back into Maya. In Maya, I'm going to go in the file menu under edit. I'm sorry, under create, and I'm going to select SVG. This is a scalable vector graphic. Within this window, I'm in the perspective. I'm just going to move off to the side right here. I'm going to, since I copied it, I'm going to press this button right here, paste, and just like that, it was able to copy my paths into Maya, and now I have that logo as a 3D model. Now, I use the paste function. You could also use the import function, which is you import a file, and any changes that you make into the file, you could always update. I'll show you that one in a moment. Uh, some of the settings that we have available here. For the size, you could resize it here. So on the SVG size, I'm going to go ahead and undo. So it's back to 10. What you're also able to do under the manipulations, it shows you all the different paths. So you are able to select each individual section. And the reason why you might want to do that is, let me try to locate the first shape over here for the S. It's two different shapes, but you are able to position these. You're able to move them forward or back with a position Z offset. You're also able to scale them if you want to. So if you want these to have more of a extrude, or you're able to move them all a global offset. I'm going to undo that stuff right there. Also what you have, this is under the SVG setting, but if you notice what I want to point out, let me go look at these curves right here. They're kind of boxy. So under geometry, you're also able to change the curve resolution. Let me bring it down to 1. So we get something that looks like this. Hey, pretty cool, but not what I want. I want it to be nice and round. 4 was the default. 6 looks better. You could always go up to 10, but just because this stops at 10 doesn't mean that you're limited at 10. What if I want to go higher? I'm gonna manually input 20. You see it's even more. So it's a nice round shape. And at this point, once you have this, similar to the type tool, you are able to add different types of some of the controls look very similar, where you're able to change the extrude distance, where you can have it set to just 0.0. It's really thin. And right here, you could also change the different type of extrusion that it's going to have. Like say, for example, I have something like this, and then I change the offset. I get something different, but I don't want to do that right now. I could change how many divisions I'm going to have. Let's go with this one, for example. And then if you want to, you could also enable a bevel. Right now it has a very hard straight edge, but if you want to give it just a slight bevel right here, I'm going to go ahead and enable it. And then you can see right here around the TM, the trademark is a little bit thick. So maybe I'm going to go ahead and, is it the offset? know the distance here. Just something slightly greater than 0. I'm going to go ahead and zoom in a bit just so you can see it. This is the after. I'm going to go ahead and undo this. I'll just turn this off so you can see this is before. And I'm going to turn it on. This is enabled. And I'm deselecting it. You get a nice smooth point. And of course you could always change some of the different settings here. The more bevel divisions, the smoother it'll be. This is more like a chiseled look, which also looks cool. It's all a matter of style that you're trying to achieve. Now this is if I copy it. Now what I want to do, I have another example here. Let me go back to Illustrator. And I'm also giving you this other file because I want to show you some of the things that could potentially go wrong. If you notice these two different files, for example, with the Sega logo, there isn't any curves that have like an interior opening. When I look at the Nintendo, looking at certain letters like the E, the D, the O, even this circle and the R, you need two paths to be able to create the shape. So I'm going to try the same thing. I'm going to select this. I'm going to go ahead and go to Edit, Copy. Let me go back into Maya. I'm just going to go ahead and create a new document, File, New. I'm not going to save this. I'm going to go to the File menu under Create. I'm going to go to the SVG and say, you know what, I want to paste that. I'm going to click on this button. But notice what happens. This time, the E did not work properly. The D did. The circle and the R did, but the O didn't work. So what's going on? Unfortunately, within Maya, there's not a way to correct it. We need to correct this within Illustrator. So I'm going to show you how to do that. Let me go ahead and show you what it looks like to import. I'm going to go back into Illustrator here. This file, Nintendo SVG, this time I'm going to open that file up. I'm going to save this file as a copy. Save as. I'm going to call this one demo, just so you can see how it works. And if you're working in Illustrator, if you're creating your own paths, for the format, instead of using Illustrator, I'm going to select SVG. I'm going to tell it save. You're going to get this window asking you what type of settings you want. You could either select SVG 1.0 or 1.1. I'll go ahead and select 1.1. I can tell it OK. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to go back into Maya. This time I'm going to tell it to import. It's going to ask me what file that I want to use. I'm going to have to navigate to my folder. It's on my users, my documents folder, CSUCI. It's the wrong folder. And the Nintendo demo, I'm going to tell it to open. And you can see that it still has that issue. Let me go back now into Illustrator. And what I need to do, I need to clean some of these up. When I say clean, I'm going to focus on the E, so I'm going to hide the other paths except for the E. And what I'm going to do, I need to separate them. So I'm going to duplicate this path. I'm just going to click and drag it to the duplicate layer button down here. So I have two copies. I'm going to hide one of them. On this one here, I'm going to keep the outer shape. I'm going to temporarily get rid of the fill color, and I'm going to switch to my direct selection tool because I'm going to select these anchor points and just delete them. And I have this that's remaining. I'm going to hide this one, and bring up the other E. And this time I'm going to go ahead and get rid of the stroke or the fill color again. And I'm going to delete all of the outside points. So all that remains is just the inside. So now when I select both of these here, I have the shapes that I need. But I need to tell Illustrator to create this as a compound path. In order to do so, I'm going to make use of the Pathfinder. The Pathfinder, it's already right here. It's this little icon, but you could always go into Window and navigate to the Pathfinder. I'm going to go ahead and click on it. Now I want to use this command right here, but notice if I move my cursor over it, I get this window, minus front, option click to create a compound path and subtract from the shape area. So I'm going to hold down option on a Mac or alt on a PC, and I'll click on this. What this does, it creates this shape where it's a compound shape and it still has the creation. I'm going to click on this one. I'm going to go ahead and assign the color again. And visually I get the same results, but this time they're two different shapes. This is my demo file. I'm going to save this. I'm on a Mac. I'm going to press Command S or Control S on a PC. Now let's go back into Maya. I'm going to tell it to update by clicking on this little update. And you can see now I get the E. But you might be wondering, what happened to everything else? Right now, what's happening is that, let me go back into Illustrator. Everything else is hidden, so I'm going to bring everything else back. I'm going to save it, Command S. Let's go back here. And in Maya, I'm going to tell it to refresh. And here we have everything that has returned. So I would continue to do the same thing with the O. I would do the same task that I just did with the E, so I could bring it back. Now, let's see, I'm experiencing I think my control is slightly frozen, this window. Okay, there it is. We're back. We're back. Now, one thing that I do also want to point out is within this one, the center part, let me go back to the SVG. Now, they're not labeled, they're just called path. We have this shape right here, which is the outer, and the outer oval, I can move it, but notice how they're separate. Now, if I want that there, I could either move it off to the side, or I'm gonna do something better to this one. I'm gonna undo. I'm gonna go back into Illustrator. I'm gonna zoom out, and for this file, I'm gonna hide these paths. I have this path right here, which is the inside path, and instead of this one just being a shape like this, perhaps I actually want it to be just this shape, the outer shape. But I still want this white shape. I'm going to duplicate that white, uh, the white area, but I'm going to hide one. And now that I have these two, I'm just going to go ahead and bring back my Pathfinder. Again, you could always go to Window Pathfinder. I'm going to hold down Option or Alt, and then I'm going to click on this button, and this creates another compound path. Let me go ahead and bring back my other shapes. I'm going to save it, Command S. I'm going to go back into Maya. I'm going to update. And now what I have in here, I have this shape. If I go ahead and offset this, notice how this is now separate. So this one, the next shape, this too is separate. So I could either move it. What you could also do, instead of moving it, I'm going to maybe change the offset so that this way it's just a little bit in if I want it there. If I don't want it, I could always go back into Illustrator. I could just hide it. Command S or Control S to save it. I'm going to tell Maya to refresh. And you can see this O. I'm just going to go ahead and fix it since it's not a hard thing to do. I'm going to hide my other shapes. Let's just focus on the O. I'm going to copy it. For this one here, I'm going to keep the outer shape. I'm going to go ahead and using my direct selection tool, I want to delete all of these vertices. Great. And on this one here, I'm going to keep the inner shape. So I'm going to go ahead and hide all of, get rid of the fill color, and just select these vertices right here. Delete. I'm going to select them. My Pathfinder window is already there. Hold down Option or Alt. Click on this button right here, minus front. Now let's bring back the fill color. So we have this, Command S to save. And I'm going to bring back all of my shapes, except for this one here. Command S or Control S. Jump back into Maya, refresh, and there's my shape. So I've just noticed that the end is a little bit smaller for some reason. So perhaps it's this one. Let's see. We could go through the different shapes and see what happened to the end. To fix it here we go. The scale. Here, let's go ahead and just tell it to be 1. There we go. And what I could do, I could go back to geometry. Let me go ahead and, if I decrease this, I get this funky looking Nintendo logo. But actually I want it to be nice and curved, so I'm going to maybe go ahead and just going to drag this all the way to 10, or if I want it to be really nice and sharp, I can go ahead and tell it to be 20. So I get something like this. If I want to add a bevel, enable bevel, I don't want it to be this large. So the distance, I'm going to go ahead and drop this down, just something slightly larger than 1. Let's zoom in. I don't want it to be too thick. The distance right here is I'm changing how far it goes from here, from the front to the side. Now I don't want it to be too small. And the divisions again is how round. I'm going to leave that at 6. So that looks fine. It's nice and round. One thing that I forgot to mention as well is that if I scroll up here, notice how it's using red. It's trying to bring in those colors into Maya as well. So under texturing, it's trying to automatically connect it, but we can always change it as well later on. And in a future class session, we're going to go over how to apply different shaders, which are the colors, the look, and material and feel. All right, so this is how you're able to import paths from Illustrator into Maya. They've been a lot easier. Again, this is really helpful if you know how to use Illustrator, or if you find uh, a shape, a logo, a design that you want to use That's a vector, and you want to easily create that shape within Maya. Great. Let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.